Welcome to Costa Living, and I'm Jim Costa, your host. So we're going to start these new segments, and on Friday we have the Fatherly Friday advice, and that one we just posted Friday, our first video on that. It's about centers of influence. If you haven't checked it out, please check that out. And then on Mondays, I think we're going to start doing a Monday matchup. And what we're going to do is we're going to go over kind of the last week and just kind of see what some of the trending videos were that are kind of in our genre here, personal finance, real estate. And I'll kind of give you my take on them and we'll kind of elaborate on them. In fact, that's what we're doing today. I love the YouTuber Meet Kevin, and he just came out with a new video that's right up our alley, and it's about real estate, how to turn 10,000 into 100,000. Now, it was kind of a quick video. His was 25 minutes, and so obviously mine's a little bit longer because I go into an analysis of it and kind of give you my take on it. And it really is like a crash course in real estate. I just elaborate on some of the concepts that he talks about, and then also some of the things where I disagree with him. And so there's quite a few of those as well. And so please watch the video and enjoy it. And we'll get over to the actual introduction. Thanks. Okay, guys. Welcome to my channel, Costa Living. This video just came out and I had to make a reaction video to it. This is one of the guys that I actually enjoy watching. He has some great content. He just is full of energy. This guy's a beast. I don't know how he records as many videos that he does. I mean, he just does so much. It's like he's got cameras going 24/7 and he's just perfected it. And he tends to talk about stocks a lot. He's starting to get a little bit more into politics, and so he talks a lot of politics. But what got me interested in him was his real estate videos. The thought processes and just the ideas behind real estate are very similar to mine. He's starting to deviate a little bit just because of where he's at in life and kind of where the path he's chosen is taking him, which kind of leaves me open to a little bit more of where I'm trying to get into, is more of the beginning investor and kind of people that are starting that journey to financial independence, and where do they go. And so he came out with this video, and it just fits right in line with what I'm trying to teach and what I'm trying to do. And so I wanted to give you my reaction to it. There's a lot that I agree with, but there's some things that I don't agree with and that he doesn't quite cover. And so I wanted to address some of those issues. So let's get into his videos. And there's certain things in there that are going to, I don't want to say they're babbling, but they're just not relevant to this conversation. So I'll kind of fast forward through some of that stuff, and we'll just try to highlight some of the key things.
Hey everyone, me Kevin here. In my last real estate update, we talked about what it would take for the housing market to crash, how likely it would be to crash, and if it were to crash, how much would it crash. If you haven't seen that video yet, I will link it down below in the description and in the first comment, so that way you can catch up. But first, let's go through this topic, and that is real estate investing dead in 2021, or can you still get from $10,000 to $100,000 in net worth quickly with real estate? Now, many of you know me for covering, well, depending on how early you found me, real estate, politics, or stocks. And the reality is, I've covered all of these because they all connect and they all help you make money fast. But the issue is, real estate by far tends to help you make money the fastest. Now, generally people don't like to hear that because real estate takes a lot more effort than stocks take. Don't get me wrong, I love stocks, but there is a time and a place for stocks. Let me give you a 20-second primer here. If I took all of my money with Lauren in 2011 when we started buying real estate and we put it all into the S&P 500 after the crash, we would have tripled our money and turned it into a little less than $60,000. Instead, we took that same $18,000, put it into a house that is now worth well over $270,000 of equity. Just that after selling costs and everything. That is, if we were to sell that house, dump it, get rid of it, even though we refinanced it twice and took money out of it, whatever, what would be left over in that house? $270,000 after selling fees and everything. So now you're comparing.
So I just kind of wanted to cover, most of the successful people and most people that have become financially independent, most of them have gotten their start in real estate, and it's one of the easiest vehicles. It's one of the quickest vehicles, and once you understand it and how it works, you tend to do it. Now, he's no exception. He got started in real estate. Another guy I watched, Graham Stephan, kind of the same way, got started in real estate. There's just several people I like. They've gotten started in real estate. Now they've become very successful YouTubers, and Kevin is, or Meet Kevin is no exception to that. He's just has a phenomenal YouTube site here. He posts videos constantly. Like I said, I don't know how he does it, but he's gotten to the point though now where he's making so much money on YouTube that it's kind of affecting some of his decisions that he's making, which is great, and a lot of them for the better. So even though he got his start in real estate, I think he's got more money in the stock market now than he does in real estate, because of the cash flow that he has. And let's no bones about it. When you get started in real estate, it takes time, and we've kind of addressed this in some of our other videos. There's two assets that you have, and everything kind of relates to, you either have time or you either have money. And most people, when they start out, they have time, but they have no money. And so that's kind of what we start with is how do we take the time you have, and how do we double D on your time and get you the most value out of it? And how do we take what little money you have and double D that money to the point where we start creating more money and just kind of get you to a point where hopefully you have more money and you can have more time. And with Kevin, real estate tends to take more time, and so the assets he has now tend to go into the stock market more so now.
So now you're comparing $60,000 to $270,000, which is obviously way larger. How is that possible? Well, I'm going to show you exactly how you would try to do exactly the same thing again in 2021. Okay, first.
I also just did a video on this too. It was a little bit slower video. We kind of went over a lot of the numbers. I'll link it at the end. And basically we took just a general market. The kind of average home right now is about 300,000 kind of throughout the US. And so that's what I used. I used a home with 300,000. We picked a market. We picked Arizona because Arizona happens to have property that just happens to fall in that range. We picked Phoenix. Again, I don't own property in Phoenix. I don't live in Phoenix. It was just something that we did because it fit the demographic of what we're looking for. And you can watch that video later, but it's kind of taking this same information and just kind of taking it to the next level. And we'll have additional videos that will be very similar to this, but go into more detail in several areas. And you'll see as we go on, I'll talk about some other things that we can do. So if this interests you, before we go much further, I'm going to ask a favor from you if you can help triple D this video. So what we want to do is we want to define this video by smashing that like button, and then what we want you to do is help me develop this channel by subscribing, selecting that bell icon so you get notified of the new videos that come out, and most importantly, help me deliver this message to the masses here. Share it with somebody. Just share this video with someone who you think might benefit from this information. So let's get back into this video.
Okay, first, let's focus on real estate. The very first thing that you have to ask yourself is, do you have a pre-approval letter? The odds are you probably don't, because most people do not have a pre-approval letter standing by. You gotta get one.
Okay, so he talks about this as the first step. And look, to me, this is needed, but this is like step 5 or 6. The pre-approval level, pre-approval letter is, when you're actually ready to start putting offers together. But before you even get to that point where you're getting ready to start putting offers in, you have to understand the market and you have to understand the numbers. And we'll go over that a little bit later with some of the other resources that he talks about, and I'll kind of elaborate on some of those resources and how you can understand those numbers and how you can use those to get to the point to when you can actually start going out and getting the letter and start writing offers.
You gotta get one. You gotta pick up the phone and get on the phone with a lender and go, I would love.
So he kind of goes on this diatribe a little bit about the having letter of approval. So I'll kind of fast forward this and we'll kind of get to the step that the next stage.
Love to get a pre-approval letter. Can you send me your needs list? A needs list is just literally a way of asking a mortgage broker, which you could Google, mortgage brokers in Los Angeles, whatever. There are millions of them who want to help you out all over the place, right? Ask them for their needs list. Then they're going to ask you, send us your driver's license, tax returns, bank statements, whatever, W-2s, 1099s, send us your stuff. Last 2 years tax returns, let's go. Send it all over to them. Treat it like a hot potato. Get this stuff back over to them. Now, all you need to do.
So he's essentially talking about what you need for a lender. What you need for a lender, what the lender needs, and getting the needs list. This is all stuff that you'll cross. All the documentation, the 2 years tax returns, the 2 months bank statements, the W-2s, all that stuff. And so, that is stuff that you'll need when you actually are ready to apply for a loan and to get the pre-approval letter.
Literally twice a day, you're going to open up Zillow, Realtor.com, or Redfin, or maybe all of them, because it doesn't take that long these days because there's just not that much that's hitting the market. You're going to have notifications on all of these, and you're going to look for real estate within 30 minutes of where you live. I don't care if you live in North Carolina or San Francisco. I don't care if you live in Texas or Florida. I don't care if you live in Manhattan or you live in Los Angeles or San Diego. And, prices have gotten too expensive. I can't get started here.
Okay, so a couple things here. He starts naming off some of the resources. So Realtor, Redfin, Zillow, Craigslist. These are all great resources. Now he's talking about actually going to find a home to go buy. And yes, you want to get to that point, but these are the same resources that I talk about when it comes to doing research. Before you actually go out and buy a home, the first thing you need to do is you need to know your numbers. How do you know if you're making a good deal on a house? How do you know what they're going for? And keep in mind, the whole idea of this is for investing. So the idea is you want to buy this house, you're going to move into it because you have to get the good financing. So you're going to get the good financing, you're going to move into it. But the idea is after a year, you're looking for the next deal. You're going to go buy another piece of property. That's how you're going to build your wealth. That's how you're going to build your income. So with that in mind, you have to know, what is this place renting for? What can I get for rent? So that's going to be a very important feature as well. And so those other resources that he mentioned, the Zillow, the Redfin, the Craigslist, they're going to help you determine how much is this house worth, what can I pay for it, and more importantly, how much can I get for rent, what other properties you're going for, what other features do the other houses have that are going to affect the amount of rent that you can get, what kind of school districts that I'm in. So these are all tools and resources you'll use to get that information. Again, that's to me is the first step, and we'll go over that stuff in more videos of how you do all that, because this video doesn't go into any of that. So please subscribe, and that way you'll be notified when we come out with those type of videos. But once you've done all that and now you're ready to actually go buy your first piece of property, this is what we're going to go into.
Here, don't care. Don't even want to hear it. It's a stupid excuse. It is what it is. And I'm not just trying to say that, I'm trying to shill you to go buy real estate at, the top of the market or whatever. No, that's not the point. The point is to build wealth. The point is the title. Can you get $10,000 and turn that into $100,000 or scale this for your area? The answer, in my opinion, is yes. And the way you do it is you start with a pre-approval letter. Then you're going to look 5 minutes a day at each of these 3 apps to see what the new listings are. And you're going to specifically look at properties that are within 30 minutes of where you live. Ideally, whatever you buy is either a 2-bedroom, 2-bath or a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, maybe even a 4-bedroom, 2-bath. So that way, if you needed to or wanted to, you could house hack the property. Which just, look, we pretty much all know what house hacking is right now. You live in the master bedroom and you rent out the other rooms. If you don't want roommates, then don't do it. That's fine. You can't qualify for a house because...
Okay, so now I agree with this part, but there's a big thing that I disagree or that he's kind of leaving out. So he's talking about, what kind of properties to look for, and traditionally they're called your bread and butter homes. Just your starter homes is what you're looking for. You're looking for the starter homes for a couple reasons. Those are the type of homes that you usually have no trouble renting because they tend to be affordable. And then it gives you a lot of outs when it comes time to exit, when you want to try to sell it, because they're the starter homes. And that's your 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, 2 baths. Again, you're buying in areas. But the thing that he's leaving out is, if this is your first property that you're buying, what I highly recommend doing is buying a multi-unit property. When I say multi-unit, I'm talking about a 2-unit up to a 4-unit. And the reason being is because when you buy a duplex, a triplex, or a 4-plex, the financing is treated the same as a single family. So while you go out and maybe you're looking at a $300,000 single family, you can probably find a $400,000 duplex, triplex, or 4-plex, depending on your area. And again, my other video kind of covers this, and it goes into the numbers into a lot more detail about how you can go from basically the same, a $10,000 investment, and buying a multi-unit property and duplicating that process to get to $1 million in about 7 years. So anyway, you can watch that video. I'll post it at the end. But a multifamily property to me is a much better investment for your first property. Again, keep in mind, this is something you're buying for a year and then you're moving on to the next property. And there's also 2 reasons that you buy a property. You either buy it for appreciation, which you're hoping that the value goes up. And single families do that. Single families are how you build wealth. You build wealth because of the way that they appreciate. And the other reason to buy a property is for cash flow. You're buying properties for cash flow. And when you start out, you tend to want to buy more cash flow properties because you don't have the income, and that's what's going to allow you to retire early, is having the cash flow. When you can replace the salary that you're making and you have that cash flow coming in, that's when the financial independence comes. You can now quit your job. You can now have some time to yourself, and you're taking control of your time by doing that. Now, at some point, you want to take that cash flow and you want to buy things that are going to generate wealth for you. So you take your cash flow from your cash flowing properties and you buy single family investment properties that help build your appreciation and help build your net worth. That's my point of view. And the other thing too is the appreciation. This is why I hope to, I buy my stuff in markets that are appreciating, because the appreciation is what's going to keep driving your rents up. Now, if you have a single family home, that appreciation, which is going to happen faster in a single family than it is in a multi-unit, it is going to help build your wealth, but it's going to help raise those rents too. So as the market continues to go up, so will the rents. Just look at your market of where you're at now. Chances are in the last couple of years, the rents have gone crazy. I know here at our market, I bought some multi-unit properties 3-4 years ago, and the rents were $800-900. They're $1,600-1,700 now in 4 years. So the nice thing about appreciation is it affects both the single family and the multifamily unit. But the nice thing is it has a greater impact on the multifamily as far as raising the rents are concerned. And so it's just to me, it's a better investment, the multifamily at first.
That's fine. You can't qualify for a house because houses are too expensive because you live in a city? Then buy a condo or a townhouse. It doesn't matter. Start with a studio, start with a 1-bedroom, but stop paying rent and stop paying somebody else's mortgage.
See, this is another thing. And again, if you can't afford a triplex or you can't afford a 3-bedroom, go to a 2-bedroom, then go to a 1-bedroom if you can. So he's kind of going the opposite way that I would go. So rather than go backwards and go into a condo, now look, there's condos out there for $67,000, $70,000. Sometimes that is a better way to go. The only thing you have to watch is, the homeowners association and what your dues are. Sometimes some of these places have $300, $400, $500, $600 a month dues in a condo situation. Well, if you're paying, $500 a month in condo dues, that's an $80,000, $90,000 loan. So you want to again know your numbers. And the other thing too is why I like multifamily over this is because maybe you're really tight for qualifying for a $300,000 home, or maybe you don't quite qualify. You only qualify for $250,000, and so there's just nothing out there. Well, what a multifamily does is you can actually take the rental income from the other units to help qualify for a loan. So now let's say you have, two other units, and so you got a triplex, and they're renting for $1,000 each. You got another $2,000. Now they're not going to allow you to use all of it, but they usually will let you use, like, say 75%. So now you got another $1,500 to qualify for that loan. So instead of a $250 house that you can't qualify, or that you can't find, but you can find a $400,000 duplex or triplex, because you got that extra $150,000 that you can qualify for now. So just another reason why I like the multifamily.
Paying somebody else's mortgage. Now we're going to go into detail on this, all right? But we're going to keep this nice and simple and streamlined. So you get your pre-approval letter. If you can't qualify for anything, and I'm not asking you to qualify for your dream home. This is not you qualifying for your dream home. Look, if you're renting a 2-bedroom, 1-bath right now for $2,000 a month, can you get a 1-bedroom for $1,800 a month and save some money? Probably, and you could probably own it. All right, so like you can make it happen or find what you're renting, but don't try to upgrade your lifestyle by buying. Keep your lifestyle modest and find something that you can qualify for and buy. If you can't qualify for anything, the problem isn't the real estate market, the problem is you. The problem is you got to get a better job. If you're unemployed and you don't have a job, you're not going to get real estate. If you had a job, but now you don't have a job because you're unemployed or you're laid off or you're furloughed, you're not going to qualify for real estate either. So you got to fix that. Whether that means retraining yourself, getting a license, getting a different kind of job, or retooling your skills, you got to figure out how to provide value to society to make an income and then use that income to qualify for real estate. A lot of people hate the idea of working for the man, but I'll tell you the easiest way to qualify for real estate is having a W-2.
So he did say that it was blunt. He tends to be a little more engaging in some of his other videos. I think this is probably his 4th or 5th video that he posted for the day, so it is kind of a fast and blunt video. But anyway, he was going to talk about here about the best way to actually qualify is to have a job.
For real estate is having a W-2 job. Like literally, you can go to college for 4 years, graduate with a comp sci degree, get a job at Motorola making $80,000 a year, and literally on day one, qualify for real estate. How much do you qualify for? Call the lender. There's no sense in me going through it right now. The easiest thing to do is call a lender. The lender's going to go, hey, well, we want to run your credit. Let them run your credit. Let them run your credit. Oh my gosh. This whole crap of it, I hear some people say like, oh, don't make sure the lender doesn't run.
Oh, we got an ad here. Well, I guess we're going to let the ad run.
Doesn't run your credit. Let them run your credit. In this competitive environment, they don't need anybody basically talking back to the lenders. You're never going to get a pre-approval letter. Just let them run your credit. Make it very, very simple. Okay, so now you got a job, you got your pre-approval letter. You're going to look at properties twice a day. Zillow, Redfin, and Realtor.com. Turn the notifications on. You're going to look within 30 minutes of wherever the heck you are. Stop going outside of 30 minutes. If you do not know whether or not it is safe to do a Craigslist transaction where you're thinking about buying at 9 p.m. at night, first of all, you don't want to live there. And B, you don't even want to take the gamble if you don't know. You should know, oh, I'd feel safe on that street. Absolutely. I'd feel great on that street. That's where you want to be. Now, you have 2 choices of things to look for.
So this is just something that I've watched several of his videos. This is kind of the criteria that he uses of whether you should buy a piece of property. And that's, do you feel comfortable going down this street at 8, 9 o'clock at night doing a Craigslist transaction? If you were going to buy something, would you go meet somebody here and feel comfortable outside doing this transaction? I know some of you wouldn't be comfortable doing any kind of Craigslist transaction, but that's kind of one of the guidelines that he uses. And again, probably good advice for a first-time investor. Once you've bought a couple pieces of properties, there's several reasons to buy. You can buy a C property and try to improve it to a B property, or B property to an A property. You can buy it in an up-and-coming area, if they're doing some regentrification, or just some different pockets of areas that are hopefully going up. Now you kind of want to look at the trend too of just different neighborhoods and developments and see what's going. Maybe they just built a new school, or there's a schedule for a new school to be going in. So there's some areas you can look at. Real estate's a long-term plan, and so you want to where are things going? Is that part of the town kind of going by the wayside, or businesses moving out? So there's a lot of other things to look at, and we'll get to that in some other videos.
Things to look for. You have new construction or you have old construction, stuff that already exists, or resale homes. Ideally, you're gonna start with resale homes. Resale homes require that you understand comps. If you are looking at single family real estate, or townhouses or condos, that means ideally you're looking at similar properties within your same neighborhood. Condos look in the same building, townhomes look in the same neighborhood, single family houses look in the same neighborhood. Make sure you look in the same neighborhood, don't walk too far out of the neighborhood, and look at properties that are similar square footage. If yours is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, and you're looking at 5-bedroom, 2-baths that are all the way on the other side of the city, you're doing it wrong, okay? You draw.
So what he's talking about here are, again, this is where I was talking about earlier, is know the numbers. I mean, before you even are getting ready to buy real estate, you have to know the numbers. You have to educate yourself. And so what comps are is they're comparables. It's what realtors use when they're going to list a house, and it's something that you can do to kind of give you a estimate and a value of what things are going for. And we talk about those other websites, Zillow and Redfin and Realtor.com and Craigslist. They kind of give you a good idea, and they're great resources to do comps. Now, when you do comps, you want to get as close as possible to the same property that you're looking at. And that's what he's saying. So if you're if you're buying a condo, obviously if you have other condos that have sold in that complex, that's going to be a very close comparison to what yours is worth. If you're in a tract home neighborhood and something sold down the street, it's going to be much more comparable to your house because it's probably the same floor plan even. So the closer that you get to your property, location-wise, size-wise, bed, bath-wise, feature-wise, the closer you are to coming up with the value. Now, one key factor here that doesn't really talk about, and when you're doing comparable analysis like this and you're trying to figure out what the value of something is, you don't want to go off of what something is listed for, what they're selling for, because that's just made up money. It's just made up numbers. It's what somebody thinks it can sell for, or in some instances in hot markets, it could be just a price that goes for a bidding war. What you want to do is you want to look at what things actually sold for. What did somebody actually pay for that property? And again, something like Zillow, you can do a search that way. Instead of going for things that are for sale, you can do a search for things that have sold. And to go a step further is once you go through things that have sold, you can change the date that shows you the solds. You see a bunch of yellow dots, and you go, wow, look at all these properties that have sold. But that's 3, 4, 5 years down the road. What something sold for 5 years ago is kind of irrelevant to what it is now. But you can change that and go, just show me the properties that sold in the last 90 days. And that'll give you a much more accurate number of what properties are going for.
Okay, you draw a circle around your neighborhood, ideally within the main street borders, and it's like, okay, well, here's a tract home, which a lot of people, when they get started with real estate, Kevin, I can't believe you said tract home. I don't want a tract home. Oh my gosh, the safest thing you can buy in real estate is a tract home, because it's the easiest thing in the world to comp. Stop trying to get the farm out in the middle of nowhere, and this is not an insult on rural, it's an insult on you can't find comps for these things. Don't look for anything unique. Get the cookie cutter stuff that everybody else has. The goal of you buying your first property is not to become this, oh, look at my house, fancy show off, look at my upgraded lifestyle. You want to get the clunker, okay? You want to get the 10-year-old Toyota Camry, and you're going to recondition the carpet and maybe do a little sprucing up on the paint job, maybe buff it a little bit, and go drive it for another 100,000 miles. That's what you're looking for. So the best way to find that is look for either condos, townhomes, or houses that are built somewhere between 1950 and 2000. Now, ideally, the newer, the better. The newer, the better, because there's less crap that you have to deal with. Like in 1950, you got to deal with maybe sewer issues, whereas in 2000, you probably don't have to deal with sewer issues. It's very simple. If you're buying in 1950.
So he's talking from experience here. The older the home, the more problems that they tend to have. You have older paint, you have older wiring, older plumbing. I mean, I've even had a couple properties where I've had to replace plumbing underneath the house because the drains were all rotted out. And when you have to start digging up, sidewalks and backyards, you got to rent equipment, and it can get very expensive. So, the older the home is, you just want to be sure you have your contingencies for inspections and those kind of things, where you can cover those when the case arises, or when the situation calls for it.
1950s or 60s home, get a sewer inspection and that'll solve it. Then you'll know, did they already upgrade to the sewer line or not? But the point is, you gotta start hunting and hunt for something that's easy to comp. Again, single family or townhouse, same area, look around the same square footage and compare. If flips are selling for $500,000 and there's a fixer that comes on the market for $350,000 and it has 10 offers on it, and you're like, oh, well, it has 10 offers on it, it's going for $50,000 over the asking price. It's like, yeah, who cares? This is like eBay, folks. I don't give a crap what the asking price is. I care about what the final value of the property is. If I can get into that $350,000 listing house, get into it by overpaying $50,000 for it, but the comps are flying off the shelf at $500K, now I know at $400,000 I could put $40,000 to $50,000 of work into this and still bump my net worth by another $50,000. I'm not gonna sell the property. If you sell the property, you'd be much closer to break even because you got big fat selling costs. Maybe you'd walk.
So again, here's an area that I don't necessarily agree with him on. I like the value in the property, so that's great. And again, he's talking about single family. So single family value appreciation, that tends to be where you're going to build your wealth. But what he's saying here is, if the value's not there, then it's not a good investment. And that's not necessarily true. Again, it's very important that you understand your numbers. And there's other ways to make money than just have the appreciation and the value there. Now keep in mind, this is something that you're buying, and in a year you're going to move into another piece of property and you're going to rent this out. So what's probably most important for you is to understand the numbers from a rental standpoint. If you're going to spend, if your property's worth $400,000, or you pay $400,000 and it's worth $500,000, and you have $100,000 in equity, that's great. But if it only rents for $1,000 a month, it's going to cost you, $2,000 every month to try to rent it. That's not going to be a good deal, even though there's equity in it. You're going to have to sell it just to make it cash flow. So that's why I'm saying understand the numbers. Maybe there's something that's worth $400,000. That's my dog hitting the dinger. If it's, maybe there's something that's worth $400,000, but it rents, for $5,000 or $4,000. That makes great sense.
But the point is not to flip real estate. The point is for you to get in, build some equity, because when you build that equity, guess what you're going to do? You're going to build your credit. You're going to be able to refinance in the future to get rid of mortgage insurance, because if you're a big weenie baby and you're worried about paying mortgage insurance, you're doing it wrong. Stop being worried about 0.5% or 0.75% extra on your interest rate. It's not a big deal. Stop looking at your loan from the point of view of, oh, well, over the next 30 years, bro, you ain't gonna have this loan for 30 years. The average person keeps the loan for 7 years. So stop worrying about mortgage insurance. Let's just cut to the chase here and be real. You're willing to pay 2 to 5% margin, but you're not willing to pay 0.75% on mortgage insurance. It's nuts. Put 3% down. Put 0% down if you're a VA, 3% conventional. Try to get homeowner assistance. Google in your area, like Ventura County Community Development.
Okay, so a lot of what he just covered there. So, he's talking about margin, all that. That's because he's talking to his audience about stocks. People are gonna, the money that they borrow from their stocks is a lot higher than something like this, so don't worry about it. And again, going back to the real estate side of things and for the investing for real estate, what he says is right. Most people, when you're starting to build your portfolio, again, I take this from a standpoint of people starting out and not having a lot of money. So if you don't have a lot of money, you're going to want to roll over to buy another piece of property. And if you're fixing up the first property, which he's going to get into the numbers here soon, when you start putting all of your money into the piece of property to try to fix it up and get it ready to rent out in a year, and you're going to be moving out to the next property, when you've tied up all your capital, you've tied up all your assets, you're not going to have money to buy your next property. And so, one of the best things that you can do is generate equity. You know, you're buying something that needs some improvements and fix up so that you have some equity in the property. So that in a year, what you can do is you can actually refinance and pull that money out. Again, these are investment properties. This is not your primary, home that you're going to live in for the next 20, 30 years. And so don't get too caught up on the initial numbers. Now, it's not a bad idea to get a 30-year fixed rate just because you never know what's going to happen. And the rates are so damn cheap right now. But keep in mind that you might be refinancing this in a year or two just to pull some money out and then use that money to go invest in another property. And he's going to cover some of that as we go on.
Google in your area, like Ventura County Community Development Corporation. Call them up. Yo, you got any homebuyer assistance options for moderate income individuals? You might be surprised. You might be able to get a ton of money literally for free granted to you by the government as long as you agree to live in the property for at least a year. Check with your state. Every state is different. But the point is, get into real estate. And the point is, if you're going to get something that needs work, it doesn't matter how much over the asking price things are going for. I don't care what things were listed for. In San Francisco, it's a strategy almost. You list properties low and purposefully try to overbid $200,000-$300,000. People are like, oh my gosh, this house sold for $300,000 over list. That says nothing to me. It says literally nothing to me. What I care about is what you can buy it for and what it's worth. Now, if you're gonna pay $450,000 for a house that needs $50,000 worth of work and it's gonna be worth $500,000 when you're done, well then there's no point to buying that because you literally just put in a ton of effort to spend $50,000 and take the risk that maybe you had to spend more, which hopefully you don't. And guess what? You break even with the neighborhood. That makes no sense.
Well, see, again, this is where I disagree. It's all about knowing the numbers. You don't have to have equity in a property for it to not make sense because it can cash flow. You're buying an area that's going to appreciate. If you bought something and you fixed it up, that maybe allowed you to get into the property to where you couldn't buy something because all the things that are fixed up and that are nice are going too fast. So it allows you to put in some sweat equity and get to the point of where it needs to be. Most of the time, if you're putting in $50,000 worth of repairs in a property, first off, most people aren't buying their first property and putting $50,000 in. If they are, it's because they got bids, and that's the cost to have somebody else do all of the work. So more than likely, you're getting $50,000 of improvements, but you're going to do the work, for half of that. But the thing that he was talking about right before this are the subsidy programs that are out there for first-time home buyers. And this is a great idea, a great concept. Highly recommend that you look into this, especially if you are a first-time home buyer. There's a lot of programs out there to help people get into homes. And another thing to keep in mind is just because this isn't your first home doesn't mean that you don't qualify for a first-time home buyer. And what I mean by that, there's criteria that for the first-time home buyer, and it's usually have you owned a home in the last 3 years, or maybe it's 5 years. So maybe you're somebody that's owned a home before, and maybe you filed for bankruptcy or you had a foreclosure, and it's been 5, 6, 7 years, and now you finally saved up enough money, you built your credit back up, and you're ready to get back into a house. You may actually qualify for a first-time home buyer program. So you really want to look into that. Look at some of the banks specialize in it. There's different organizations and community things that kind of help people do that. So you want to look into the resources that are available in your community.
That makes no sense. In such a scenario, you're better off, two scenarios here. This goes into a fork. One, you buy new construction. New construction, you pay a little bit over market value, but you get 10-year builder warranties. There's nothing for you to worry about. You just make sure you're not buying like on the outskirts in the middle of nowhere. Make sure you're buying in an area that's more tried and tested. And that is a downside of buying new construction, is the neighborhood is not tested. You probably know which neighborhoods in your 30-minute radius are like the high quality, really desirable neighborhoods with the really entrenched like safety statistics, and everything about it is great. Everybody wants to live in that neighborhood. Ideally, that's the kind of neighborhood that you want to be buying in. You want to be buying in the neighborhoods that have proven themselves. So important. Anyway, if you do...
So, a couple things here. For new construction, that yes, that is a good way to, again, depending on where you are on the financial scale, sometimes you can afford to get a little bit nicer house, pay a little bit more money, get into a newer neighborhood. Now, obviously, if this is something that you're hoping to turn into a rental, hopefully something that you can eventually move out of and move into something else. There's some pitfalls there that you have to look for so you don't overspend within that community. And again, single family, brand new home, very hard to cash flow. So it's going to be very hard to cover your expenses when you move out. But the plus side is it's also very easy to get some appreciation and start building that wealth. And just some key factors for when you're looking at new construction. Now, a lot of times when you have these developments and builders are going in and they're building out these developments, especially with the market so hot right now, it's not uncommon for 2 or 3 builders to go into a development. So maybe they're building 300, 400, 500 homes, and you have 3 or 4 different builders going in there. Again, keep in mind you're buying this from an investment standpoint. Usually when there's that many builders in there, there's 1 or 2 builders that might specialize in a little more affordable home. That's the one that you want to be looking for, because one, you're going to get the house 10, 20, maybe 30, even 30% lower than what the other builders are building for. So you're getting more bang for your buck. And the other thing is, when people are first moving in, well, which builder is this? Well, which builder is this? They're looking at that stuff. 5, 7, 8, 10 years down the road, it's not about what builder anymore, it's what neighborhood. So am I in this neighborhood? So this other house that's 2 blocks away now, it's still in the same neighborhood, but you were able to buy it at the more affordable price and you're getting more bang for your buck. You're building up equity. So you want to look at, get the house that's a little more affordable by a more affordable builder. Now, it might not have quite the features, maybe the more expensive one has a brick on the outside or rock on the outside, and they got, 50 different paint colors that you could paint, where this guy has 6 paint colors and it's, it's a different type of siding or something. So don't worry about that stuff. Buy in the neighborhood, because that's what's going to get you. When people want to move into that neighborhood, their price is going to drive up your price. So you never want to be the most expensive house in the neighborhood, because you're just bringing up everybody else's price. So just keep that in mind. And another thing for new construction, a lot of times what these builders are doing is the builder will go in and they'll build this new development, and let's say it is 300 homes. What they'll do is they'll divide that whole development into sections, and what they typically call phases. And so what they do is they go, okay, well, in this phase here, this is the first, we're going to build these first 100 homes. So they build these first 100 homes, they price them to start getting people in, start building up this neighborhood and this development. That's the phase you want to get into, because it's the beginning phase, it's starting out, there's not a lot of benefits and features yet that they've built out, and so you tend to get a better buy on the house. And then what they end up doing is, they'll build the park, they'll build the swing sets, they'll build the center, the workout centers, maybe a pool. And so once all of that's built, now they go to phase 2. So phase 2, they're building the exact same homes, but they're $50,000 more, because now they have all of these features. So you can have the exact same floor plan 6 months later, and it's going for $50,000 more. So the earlier phase that you can get into, then the bigger the profit for you. Now, the downside is you don't know what phase 2 and phase 3 is going to be sometimes. Sometimes they can change the buildings, change the developments. You want to watch out for that. But anyway, that's another idea and thing to think about when you're buying in-track homes.
Anyway, if you do go the new construction route, that's fine. You can do that. That's acceptable. You're paying a little bit over market value, but you're getting the benefit of brand new. Big danger with new construction, don't be a newbie woobie and go in there and start doing all the builder upgrades. I literally want you to go into this new construction, and I don't care if this feels like pouring acid into your eyes, do the right thing for your money and your wealth. Leave the carpet and linoleum and just live with it. Stop trying to go, oh, now we own the house, we got to do hardwood floor, now we got to do wainscoting, and we got to do crown molding. It's all a money grab to rip you off and rob you of your wealth. The reason people go broke in houses is because they overspend improving them. They do not act like pros, they act like newbies. It's a big mistake. Do not overspend on real estate. So, fork number one is just go new construction. Fork.
Another he's right on with all that stuff. You know, you buy a $300,000 new development, by the time you're done, it ends up costing you $330,000, $350,000 because all of the upgrades that they've sold you. Now, the only thing that is different with that is stop looking at the upgrades as, you know, what would I like and what would I like to have, and start thinking about it from an investment standpoint. If I'm going to rent this house, is this upgrade going to make me more money? And so like he was saying, if you know, maybe you're going in the laundry room and they're just going to put vinyl in the laundry room. Or if you want, for $500, we can tile it. Well, you're not going to get any more money for tile versus vinyl. And then you do, you know, same thing in the bathrooms. So all the bathrooms are this way. Well, pretty soon by the time you're done, you just added $5,000 to put tile in these different areas instead of vinyl in these different areas. So again, you want to watch those type of things. Where you do want to spend your money are in the areas where you can't make the changes later on. You can't do the upgrades. You can always put new flooring in. You can always, you know, paint the two-tone paint. You know, most of these builders are going to charge you, well, if you want all one color, then it's one price. But if you want the ceiling a different color than the walls, we're going to charge you an extra $3,000. You can paint those later. So don't spend the money on that kind of stuff. Because chances are in 3, 5, 6 years, you're going to want to repaint anyway. Just the trends are going to change and everything else. So don't spend the money on that. Where you do want to spend your money is, you know, maybe a larger patio, so that way you can actually put more furniture out there, or a covered patio so that you can barbecue in the winter and you can get more rent for that. You know, maybe pre-wire a 220 outlet so that, you know, later on you can add a hot tub and maybe, you know, turn it into an Airbnb and you get more money out of it. You know, maybe add a fireplace where you can get a higher rent because it has a fireplace. You know, things like that. You know, outlets. Sometimes they'll put an outlet in the ceiling for a light, but for an extra $50 or $100, they'll brace it and everything else so you can actually hang a ceiling fan. That's the kind of stuff you want to pay for. Don't have them hang the ceiling fan. You can go to Home Depot, buy a ceiling fan for $60, $80, and you can hang it yourself. But if you don't have that bracket up there, you don't want the ceiling fan to fall on your head. So you want to be sure that you have those type of things put in so that you can easily upgrade them down the road with your own labor.
One is just go new construction. Fork number two, you gotta make sure you're doing your numbers correctly. Because if you're looking at a property that has some nasty paint and carpet on the walls, and you call up a licensed contractor, and I'm not bagging on licensed contractors here, okay? Ran a licensed contracting company, okay? Folks, if you look at a property that needs paint and carpet, here's what you do. You call a painter directly. Call 3 painters directly. Go to Home Depot and find referrals to painters. There are people handing out their business cards all day long. Or better yet, you paint it on the weekend. You gotta scrape the ceiling? Get a P100 respirator, watch some YouTube videos, and go do it. Who cares if it's not 100% perfect? Or find somebody else to finish it for you after you scrape it all down. Follow precautions. Yeah, there can be asbestos, there can be lead, there can be mold. Learn what a P100 respirator is. Learn how to protect yourself from things that aren't really that big of a deal. Lead, asbestos, mold, please. It's a joke if you just follow the correct precautions. As a homeowner, there's a reason the EPA gives you guidance, for example, on how you can deal with mold yourself. So it's not that big of a deal. You gotta deal with the issue that's causing the problem. If there's a leak, it's causing mold, call a plumber, fix the leak, get rid of the mold, problem solved. You can even do air samples for mold afterwards if you want, after you clean the place up. But the point is, things in real estate seem much more like a big deal than they really are. So if you go into a property and you call up a general contractor and you take the noob approach and you're in this 1960s property and all of a sudden a contractor comes in and goes, oh, you know, the electrical system's old. Oh, you know, that's not up to code anymore. Oh, you know, the plumbing's not up to code anymore. Oh, you know, we should just tear out all the kitchen cabinets. Oh, wow, those are some old fiberglass bathtubs. Oh my gosh, we should just tear all that crap out too. Well, yeah, guess what you're gonna get? You're gonna get a $150,000 whole house remodel bid. You get what you ask for. You call a licensed contractor, you get what you ask for. Now, flip the script. And I'm not saying go unlicensed. I'm saying I get on the phone with an electrician and go, yo, I got a property here. It's going to be a rental in the future. I just need the existing electrical system made safe. I'm on a shoestring budget. I do not have money to do everything. I just want this safe. I don't want this property to burn down, and I don't want anybody to get zapped. Can you do that for me? Great. Come on out. Do a bid. Great. Perfect. What are they going to do? GFCIs, make sure there are no faults, make sure the breakers aren't rusted and arcing, and they solve the electrical issues. You do the same thing with plumbing. You reglaze the bathtubs and you repaint the cabinets instead of replacing the stuff. You put in $50 faucets instead of $500 faucets, because why are you even thinking about putting in $500 faucets when $50 faucets, guess what a $50 faucet does? It makes water flow. And guess what a $500 faucet does too? It does the same freaking thing. So when people start putting their heads on correctly about how real estate functions and how to make money in real estate, it's not that hard. Okay, so what about the title? How do you take $10,500 on a property and end up getting to $100,000? Well, let's...
Okay, kind of what he was talking about before though, that's one of the biggest mistakes new investors and new property owners make, is they overspend on property. They look at it from the standpoint of, well, I would like this and I would do this, but do you need it? You know, when you're looking for a rental, it's about functionality. Does this work? Will this do what it's supposed to do? So you don't want to overspend on things, because, you know, you put like you were saying, you put a $500 faucet, and I've bought some nicer faucets, not too much for rentals, but you know, they end up breaking. You know, the tenants break them, and you got to replace them. And it's much easier to replace something that you can, it's a lot less expensive. But anyway, something to keep in mind.
Well, let's go with the example that I gave you, which is you find a $350,000 listed fixer-upper. I don't care if it's a 2-bedroom, 1-bath from the 1920s or a 3-bedroom, 2-bath from the 1980s. It doesn't matter to me, okay? Newer the better, but you don't have to have a strict new bias. So you just have to be more aware of other issues that could come up with older. Okay, so now you find a $350,000 property. You look at it and everybody's like, oh my gosh, it's gonna take 150 grand to fix this thing up. Then you look at it from the rental hat perspective and you get these quotes like I'm talking about. People like, oh, Kevin, we can get this done for 45K because your electrician's gonna do this, your plumber's gonna do this, you're gonna send in the specific trades. You're gonna be dealing with the house, you're gonna be there every day anyway, so you coordinate it, put in a little bit of work. But then guess what you're also gonna do? You're gonna go there on weekends and do the cabinets yourself. Do the painting of the walls yourself. Scrape the ceiling yourself. Do a little bit of work yourself. It's not that hard. Be careful, by the way, with demo, okay? Everybody wants to go in with a hammer and start swinging and opening walls. Big mistake. You get the city on your butt.
Yeah, he's saying this. Now, again, most beginning investors, they're not going to buy a property that needs huge improvements. You know, some flippers might do that, but that's not what this is about at all. You're not flipping here. You're just making improvements. He buys houses, and I've seen some of his remodels, major remodels. I mean, they're knocking down walls, putting in multiple windows, you know, down to the studs kind of stuff. Beautiful things when he's done, but that's not your typical investor. I mean, he's fixing these things up quite a bit. So he's kind of talking from experience here, and he's kind of run into some issues with that. You know, we're repairing things. We're not remodeling. We're repairing things and just making them better and making them function and safer.
You do not want the city on your butt, okay? Anything that requires planning, you run away from. Because here's how planning works. Hey, yo, architect, I want to do plans for my house. Okay, Kevin, sounds good. I'll get you plans in 6 weeks.
So he goes on a thing here. We're not going to deal with this. I'll just kind of fast forward it.
Oh, could you do any faster? Sure, I'll get them done in 4 weeks. I'll just rush them and you'll have way more corrections. Then you submit your plans. You're like, yay, we submitted our plans. The city takes 8 weeks to get back to you, and the city's like, here are your plans with corrections. And then you get your corrections like, cool. Hey, architect, can you do the corrections? Sure, in 6 weeks. Can you do them in 4? Okay, I'll do them in 4. You submit them again. You wait another 6 weeks with the city to get your plans back. And the city goes, oh, we have more corrections for you. And you literally keep looping down the cycle until you never want to touch real estate again. So Do not touch anything that has to do with planning. Don't move walls. Don't do things that require special plans to be submitted with the city. It's stupid. Just put the house back the way it was meant to be. I don't care if the master bath feels small because it's from the 50s. I don't care if you don't like where the wall placement is. Your goal is to go in there, paint, carpet, clean it up, put some inexpensive fixtures in, light fixtures, and I'm not saying cut corners, I'm not saying lipstick on a pig. You can do high quality work using lesser expensive materials. It's just not that hard. Hey, by the way, quick note, yeah, the market is pretty competitive, and one way that I found to put myself in front of sellers before their properties hit the market is with Deal Machine. If you go to Metcalf.
So again, he's kind of going over, one of the things that he's pitching. I'm not going to play this. I'll just kind of fast forward it. He does get into some good ideas, though, about what kind of properties to look for. And so, I'll kind of let that play so you can listen to that, because I think that is important.
The way I like to identify those is I look for properties that purposely look like they have an old dilapidated paint color, or maybe even a driveway, or it kind of looks like the yard's overgrown and beat up, but the windows are new, the roof is new, and it looks like the owners spent a lot of money on the systems of the house, like the expensive things, but they did not spend a lot of money on the things that are easy to do, like paint and carpet and weeding. I can do that with my own labor. That's the kind of target I'm looking for. And so I love sending mailers, and I send hundreds of mailers monthly to properties that I've specifically targeted.
So, the large expenses are the things also that beginning investors don't count on. And that's the thing. They're called CapEx. Your CapEx are your capital expenditures, the things that are very expensive that tend to be amortized over, like a $15,000 roof, $7,000 to paint the outside of your home, asphalt, all new plumbing, all new windows. Those are the type of things that will eventually have to be paid for, and you want to take that into consideration. And so when he's saying as you drive around and those big capital expenditure things have already been done, but maybe there's just some deferred maintenance in some other areas, that's where some opportunities might be.
All right, so now you are fighting to qualify for a property, and you see one, okay, it's that $350,000 house. It looks like a great deal, and you're like, Kevin, I'm gonna do like you say, I'm gonna put 3% down, I'm gonna put the little down, but I don't have the $30,000 to fix it up. I've got maybe a little bit of extra money to get started on it. Perfect. Then that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna get started little by little on the thing. And every time you get paid, you're gonna take your money and you're gonna do a little bit more on that property. You're gonna paint it, you're gonna clean it up, and you're gonna slowly clean that place up to where you can live in it, maybe live in one room, and slowly fix the place up over time. You don't have to have $40,000, $50,000 sitting around right away. Get the place to where it's in a livable state, which usually you can do by cleaning it up and cleaning it out. Scrape the ceilings. You can do a lot of the stuff, the prep that you need to do, the cleaning, the paint, a lot of the stuff you could do for very, very inexpensive costs. Don't worry about the landscaping yet. Don't worry about the exterior paint. Focus on scraping the ceilings, clean it up, get the gunk out of the bathtubs and the trash out from around the property, paint the thing, clean it up, and move in. Get the thing into a livable condition. And so your goal, $350,000 place hits the market. You buy it for $400,000 because you write a nice letter to the owners and you waive some contingencies. So now you put, let's say, $3,000 down. I'm sorry.
Okay, so this is another area where I disagree with him. Again, we're talking about first-time investors, first-time home buyers. So contingencies, when he's talking about contingencies, these are the things that you put in your contract to protect yourself. So, if you're a first-time home buyer, you're not going to want to waive these contingencies. These are the things that will help get you out of the contract if you actually find something and still get your deposit back and your money back. Now, later on, as you become a more advanced investor and you kind of know how to start looking for some of these things, you can waive some of them. These are things like your roof. You're going to have a roof contingency so that you're going to have your roof inspected. You're going to have a loan contingency that if for some reason your loan doesn't go through, it's contingent on you qualifying and you actually getting your loan. If say the rates go up and you no longer qualify and the actual lender denies you, well, that gets you out of your contingency because you were denied. So I don't necessarily agree with waiving contingencies for this type of investing. This is, again, first-time home investors going in with minimum down payments. You're going to want those protections in place. So, there's other things that you can do. You can have not only you write a letter, you can have your realtor write a letter, you can have your mortgage broker write a letter, things that make you a stronger case that they would want to go for you versus somebody else.
Now you put, let's say, $3,000 down, 3% down on $400,000. You got a loan of $388,000. You put $12,000 down. Great, now you control the property. Now over the next 6 months, you're gonna spend $30,000 or whatever capacity you have to spend to fix the property up. You're gonna do a lot of work yourself if you don't have the extra money. If you've got the extra money, great, then you don't have to do as much money yourself. You can hire the rest out. If you wanna hire everything out, get it done for $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 or less. It depends how much you wanna do. And it depends on the area in which you are. Look, if you're in an area in Idaho where houses rent for $1,000, maybe you only spend $10,000 fixing the place up. A little bit of touch-up paint, you don't even change the colors, and you put in some new appliances and some new carpet and linoleum, you call it a day, it's 10 grand, you're done, you're good to go. If you're in, let's say, a Southern California house and you want to spend a little bit more, hey, maybe you spend a little bit more. And that gets you to spending $30,000. And maybe now you look very similar because you put your own blood, sweat, and tears into the thing. You have a house that's very similar to property selling for, say, $500,000. Now, your basic renovation is not going to be worth as much as a flip, but it's going to be worth pretty similar to, or pretty dang close to what the flips are relative to what you were able to buy it for. So let's say you buy a place for $400,000, 3% down, that's $12,000 down. Now you got a loan of $388,000. You put, let's say, $30,000 into it over 6 months. So you're into the deal for $430,000. And now all of a sudden, your property is worth not $500 like the flips, but $480, let's say. Well, that just created $50,000 of net worth for you. See, the beautiful thing about that is because you now saved money and worked towards spending the money to fix it up, that is now extra equity as well. So $480,000 minus the $388,000, you just convinced yourself to save the money to fix up the property, to save the $12,000 down payment. All of a sudden, you have a net worth of $480 minus $388. But wait, with inventory how low it is, the odds are after the 6 months or 3 months it took you to fix the place up, the place is probably worth at least the $8,000 more. In which case, if your house is worth $488, there you go. You've got $100,000 of equity in this property. And what'd you do? Yeah, you put that $12,000 down. Yeah, you saved up to put in that $30,000 worth of work or material. Maybe it was less. Again, depends on the area you're in, depends on your capacity.
So again, this is another thing that I don't kind of like it. If somebody is struggling to get that $10,000 to buy the property, chances are they're not going to have $30,000 to put in to fix up. Because now it's no longer a $10,000 investment to get to 100, it's a $40,000 investment to get to 100. But anyway, it's you kind of get the numbers to do what you can. And again, this gets back to my key point of know the numbers, know where you're at. And I agree that most of the time people starting out, it's cheaper to figure out how to do things than to hire somebody sometimes. The first house I bought, it took me a year to fix up, and I put $50,000 on credit cards fixing it up. Now, I'm not recommending this for anybody. This is just, just for information. But, what I was able to do is at the end of that year, I was able to refinance, pull all my money back out, pay off the first loan that I had, and pay off the $50,000 and put some cash in my pocket. And that helps fund your next deal. So, it can be done. Again, I'm not recommending that. This is just informational purposes.
You're in, depends on your capacity to save. But now you've created $100,000 net worth. And you're not going to sell the property. Your goal isn't to flip this. What's your goal instead? Well, after a couple years, especially if the market keeps going the way it is, maybe you refinance in the future. You get rid of mortgage insurance. Maybe you even lower your interest rate in the future. Depends on where we stand. Or you refinance, don't get any cash out, do a cash out or do a home equity line of credit, and now you have a big credit card built into your home where if you ever needed to swipe the credit card of your house, you'd be paying 4 or 5% interest, maybe 6% interest on a secondary loan against your house, which you can now use to buy the dip in stocks if you wanted to. But the point is,
whoa, what? so, so there's some things I agree with here. That a HELOC or home equity line of credit is a great tool and a great resource. And I highly recommend this during the first year while you're buying this house. Now, obviously you have to have equity in the house. So if you were able to buy this under market and you're able to fix it up and the market has gone up that 10%, chances are you will have some equity and you can access this. Now, the nice thing about a home equity line of credit is it's very inexpensive to get. A lot of banks will do this, and sometimes they do them for free. Sometimes they're 50 or 100 bucks. They'll just do a drive-by appraisal in a lot of situations, so you don't even have to pay for an appraisal. So I like the HELOC and the options that it gives you. And if you're able to do this while you're still living there, it's going to be a lot easier for one thing because it's your primary residence. And so, a lot of times they can even go up to, 90%, 100% of the value of your home. So it makes it nice to have that kind of safety net, if you will. Now, the downside is if you start using this for other expenses and you start building this thing up, because it's going to be at a higher interest rate than what, a typical mortgage is going to be. But another advantage of a HELOC is usually at the beginning, they're interest-only loans. And so it makes it really nice and it keeps your payments down low. Now, at some point, they usually I think it's 10 years. Each one's a little bit different. You have to, look at the bank or where you get it from. But so it's those interest-only payments. And then at 10 years, whatever the balance is, they tend to convert it over to pay back the principal and the interest. But at the beginning, it makes it very affordable. And, you can also use this money to help fund your next deal. Now, the other thing you got to watch out for is, sometimes it counts against you because you have available access to these loans. So even though it doesn't show up as you have an actual loan, you do have access to the money. So it kind of can hurt you with your debt ratios. So you just have to be aware of that and kind of know, a lot of times worst case scenario, if you haven't used it, I have had instances where, they'll ask you to close your home equity line. And if you're not using it, that's just something that you might have to do. But anyway, just something to think about.
But the point is, you're now in the real estate market. And here's the beautiful thing. If you have a $480,000 house and the house just appreciates for $488,000, let's say, and then over the next year after you fix it up, it goes up in value just 5%. Just 5% of an increase in value on $488,000 is $24,400. Well, you put in that $30K plus the $12K, right? That's $42K. You've almost, in 2 years, you got basically your money back in net worth. And all of a sudden, your net worth is 6 figures rather than, I put all my $12,000 into options in the stock market and, yay, I tripled it and it turned into $36,000. But then because you were taking on so much risk to triple, there's a chance of you potentially losing all of it and you go back to zero or pretty close to zero or even half. Like real estate just got you to 6 figures plus. Like there's no reason for people not to start with real estate. People bag on real estate because it's hard to find a deal. Well, let me ask you, if you think it's hard to find a deal, are you pre-approved? And are you looking twice a day? Because if those two things aren't true, yeah, probably is hard to find a deal. Also.
So one of the key things, about that increase, and this is why real estate is just such a powerful tool, is you're leveraging money. You're leveraging other people's money to build your net worth. And so even though you put $12,000 into this deal or $10,000 in this scenario, the value, you bought $400,000 of real estate for $10,000. So when it goes up 10% or 5%, that's $20,000. So $20,000 when you're only paying 12 or 10, that's it's just phenomenal. I mean, that's why you get such huge increases based on what you put in.
Probably is hard to find a deal. Also, if you are pre-approved and you are looking twice a day for a deal, and you're like, well, everything that just comes up in my market is overpriced. Really? Is everything just selling over the asking price because maybe you're not keeping up with the comps? Are the comps you're looking at July comps from last year? Or are they February and March 2021 comps where you're actually up to date on what the current market pricing is and the trajectory of the market? When you throw yourself into this real estate market, you're gonna learn so much more. And you're gonna see the power of being able to leverage your real estate with just 3 to 5% down and really maximize and do what other people can't when you put the right mindset on. Now, if you want more perspectives on how I handle real estate, check out the programs I have linked down below. I have a real estate investing course and a do-it-yourself property management and rental renovations course. And these programs help save you tens of thousands of dollars if you follow the simple steps I provide in these programs. You all the insight on how to make sure you're negotiating a deal correctly and how to get deals in competitive environments. Folks, you gotta get into real estate. If your net worth is under $50,000, seriously get into real estate. Look for a deal, follow the steps in this guide here. Don't overspend on real estate, and realize if things ever go bad with real estate, you can always rent out rooms, you can rent out the building, or guess what happens? The government comes in to swoop out homeowners first. I'm not saying go overpay, and I'm not saying live beyond your means. Take this safely. It is a real obligation, but your capacity for building wealth is substantially higher the lower your net worth is. If your net worth is under $50,000, you should be looking into real estate and increasing your income. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.
You know, I wanted to give him justice there. I mean, I'm using his video for this kind of stuff, so I wanted to allow him to, you know, plug his stuff in his courses. You know, I haven't bought his real estate course or his property management course. I've been a property manager for 20 years. I'm sure I can actually learn something from it still. You know, you can always learn more. Now, in kind of full disclosure, I actually have bought his YouTube course. And there's some great content in there. So I think he's great in what he does and his commitment to his listeners. You know, he's constantly adding new information. But you know, I encourage you to check out his channel if you haven't already. And by all means, he's got so much content in real estate. There's tons of information there to gain out of it. And I just wanted to share this with you because I think he's got good content overall. This fits right in line with kind of my focus of this channel is kind of that beginning investor and how do you take those steps and how do you get into your first property. Now I'm sure that, you know, we plan on having a lot more videos to kind of go through all of the how and to get you through some of those step processes, how to use those other resources that were mentioned throughout the video, the Zillow, the Redfin, and the Craigslist and all those, and how to research these properties, how to know the numbers, how to understand the numbers, how to develop your plan and know what you're doing, and then how to actually deliver it and go do it. So if you want to get some more tips and more videos and more advice on how to do all this stuff, please subscribe to my channel. We appreciate it because understanding real estate, how to take a small amount and double D on your triple D and make an investment and become financially independent, all those